Hi, my name's Alex Witney, and this is Conspiracy 101. And today we're going to be looking into Atlantis in Bolivia. Yeah, a bit of a weird one. If you'd have watched our second episode of Conspiracy 101, I think it was the second, might have been the third. Who knows? Time's illusionary. We discussed and looked at Atlantis. A few different possible scenarios. It's breaking the illusion. And I'll explain my crookedness in a second. And we looked at a few different explanations and sort of an overview of Atlantis. And we happened upon a very special website, which we'll discuss in a second. There were lots of different things come up in these Conspiracy 101 shows I do. And Atlantis, obviously, the logical next step for that would be to look at the Isle of Mu, or maybe High Brazil, or maybe a specific location where Atlantis might be. And I know what you're thinking to yourself. Of course, just talk about Santorini, or talk about an island in the Caribbean, or, every other possible place apart from Bolivia. I happened upon, I may as well get it up whilst I'm discussing all of this, and hopefully it'll work. There it is, looking as evanescent as, I don't know if that's a word actually, evanescence, looking as beautiful as ever. And the reason I found this website was because I wanted a picture to put into my a thumbnail, YouTube thumbnail, in terms of the layout of Atlantis. It's very specific within Plato's work, and I just wanted to find an image online. I found the image online, and it was part of a presentation. And presentation, I actually don't know where it is. That's really interesting. Let's have a quick look and see if I've still got the presentation. I don't think I do. Ooh, it's like lost media. No. Maybe we'll find it along the way. There are various different books that this individual has written, and I'm pretty sure it is just one man. You can see him sneaking up on the picture there. And he is basically, he thinks that Atlantis is in Bolivia, and we stumbled across this website. I put it as part of my little package of things I wanted to talk about. And I didn't realize how in-depth it went into. Like, obviously people have books, but usually their websites are slim, and it points towards the books. This one, on the other hand, just goes straight into it and just explains everything, as seemingly. And today we're going to go through it. I said during that episode we're going to come back to this, and I think between series, every 10 episodes I'm going to do, I'm going to break them up basically into series, and I think between the series 1 and 2 and going on in the future, it'd be nice to come back and do these sort of bitty ones where it doesn't really make sense to make a whole episode about it, but it's interesting to look at and fun to read, but maybe at a slower pace. Maybe not as much goofs and gaffs, but just sort of going through it. And that's one of the reasons why my setup is just wrong, basically. I'm at a tilt. I didn't realize I was at such a Dutch angle until I started. Basically, my camera on its mount is just slightly awkward. The lighting's probably not perfect. I think I'm a bit darker. I've changed a few settings on the camera I use, etc., etc. I've got some stuff in the background I'm working on. For example,
Göbekli Tepe.
Graham Hancock saying Göbekli Tepe. That's the exciting. That's the kind of thing you can look forward to in season 2. Let's just get into it. I think that's all I have to say in regards to why I'm reading this. You can read along if you want. AtlantisBolivia.org. It's written in Spanish as well. So if you're a Spaniard or a Spanish-speaking person, then you can read that. Welcome to Atlantis. That's not what I thought Atlanteans looked like. There he is. I guess that's the guy, Jim Allen. Jim Allen's Historic Atlantis in Bolivia. What is Atlantis? Just before I get into this in earnest, this is, earpiece out. let's just be real. Oh, man, I need to get another. I bought some like little things for my earpiece. But they don't fit. So I need to find some other ones. Anyway, before I get into this is what website design should go back to. Look how clean and easy it is to use. Maybe not legible. Probably not legible. But I know what I can click on stuff. Got hyperlinks. That's the future. Anyway, great form. Great form. What is Atlantis? Atlantis is a part of a story by Plato, which describes various forms of government in describing his ideal form of government in a theoretical ancient Athens. Plato mentions that it would be appropriate in his story for ancient Athens to have defeated some worthy enemy in war. And in describing a suitable enemy, he proposes to use a story which he says was originally brought from Egypt. That was the story of Atlantis, an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, which lay in the Atlantic Ocean opposite the Pillars of Hercules, which supposedly disappeared into the sea in a day and a night of earthquake and floods. So let's just break that down just a little bit. For people who might not have watched the first thing we did, Plato, he's an old writer, isn't he? He writes stuff. He wrote some stuff. When it describes Libya and Asia, it's talking about Asia Minor, not Asia as we know it now, but big, basically. The Pillars of Hercules are the Straits of Gibraltar, or whatever you call that if you're a Spaniard. And the most likely place for Atlantis to be in terms of historically accurate Atlantis would be Santorini, the island Santorini, which was destroyed by a volcano/earthquake pre-Plato, but still when there was a very advanced civilization for the time, the Minoans, I believe it was, etc., etc. The question is this. Should we zoom in a bit? Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, look how perfectly that lines up. Is any part of Plato's description of Atlantis true? Or was it entirely made up? Does any of it match a real place? Let's see. Oh. It's in Spanish, if you want to read it. So this is the kind of art, highbrow, that I was very interested in. Obviously one of the things that drew me to that presentation. So, the sea. Seawall built up with houses. That's a terrible way to build a seawall. Channel 50 stades, I can't remember how you pronounce that, long, leading to the outer harbour. Round about the city was a smooth and level plain enclosing it round about. The plain was originally a quadrangle rectilinear for the most part and elongated. It was a long, narrow rectangle and measured 3,000 stades long by 2,000 stades wide at its centre, measuring across from. But this is beyond board. There we go. That's more like it. This is what I wanted to get. I think this is the actual picture that I might have used. So you've got the outer harbour. This is what roughly is described in Plato. I say roughly, it's described in detail, but this is how people imagine it. Because obviously when someone writing something down, you've got docks, outer harbour, outer ring island, middle harbour, inner ring island, inner harbour, temple of Poseidon, central island, 5 stades wide, and then you got this bridge. You got a race course, a wall of tin, a wall of brass or bronze, fountains of hot and cold springs, and then obviously you've got that fancy metal that may or may not have been made up. The orichalcum. Okay, so the Atlantis Mountain, 50 stades from the sea. Lake Pupo. It's Lake Pupo. I don't know how you say Lake Pupo, but I'm going to say it like Lake Pupo. The Atlantis Mountain at Pampa Alugar. See, this is This is getting into it a little bit before actually explaining what it is, isn't it? It's got a lot of stuff. You know, Atlantis, he thinks the Atlantis was in the plain, it's specific plain within, next to Lake Pupo in Bolivia. Atlantis. Click for poster, yes sir. Ooh, look at that. I feel like I need to print that off. Look at that bad boy. The Lost Kingdom of the Andes. So you got the Titicaca Sea. And then Pupo. And then Atlantis is there. Is that Atlantis? And then this is the plains. Beautiful. Right, so let's continue. Jim Allen's Historic Atlantis in Bolivia. Page 1 of 4. What was Atlantis? We've literally just read this. Introduction. The choices. Some people believe that everything in Plato's story of Atlantis was entirely made up for philosophical purposes as part of a moral tale. Others believe it was 100% of Plato's story as a true story, which Plato himself asserted 3 times in his text. That is true. Because of the attention to detail in Plato's story, again, a bit odd. Others believe that perhaps he was describing a real place and added some embellishments of his own or aspects drawn from other legends. The test must be this. Is there a geographic location or sequence of events that matches the actual description given by Plato? Plato, Greek philosopher, this is just taken straight from Wikipedia, isn't it? Writing in his, because I know Wikipedia. Writing in his works, Timaeus and Critias describes a large continent called Atlantis with a wonderful civilization which he said existed at one time at a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, opposite the Pillars of Hercules, aka the Strait of Gibraltar. He also described a small volcanic island, also called Atlantis, with a fabulous city and lots of fabulous features. Fabulous. And which was the capital of this great continent. Plato then said the island continent sank into the sea in a space of a single day and night. Thus arose the legend of the lost continent and lost city of Atlantis. It's kind of like Ibiza, isn't it? It's the town, but it's also the island. The problem, modern geology says a continent can't sink beneath the sea in the space of a single day, and no such continent has sunk into the Atlantic Ocean. The real problem, the question has always been, was Plato's Atlantis based on a real place and real events, or was it simply a story he made up? Where Atlantis isn't. Atlantis is not Terra, Santorini, island of Crete, although it has become popular in modern times to think that Atlantis might have been based upon a description of Crete and Terra. In fact, the Crete-Terra idea is virtually the opposite of what Plato said, not being in the Atlantic Ocean and having none of the characteristics Plato described. Let's continue. I'm just going to read through it. I'm not going to start arguing with it. Those in favour of this theory say that if you take Plato's dimensions of the rectangular plains of Atlantis and divide it by 10, it would fit on Crete. But the fact is that if you divide the dimensions by 10, it would still be too large to fit on Crete. I'd love to see that. Not unexpected. Atlantis is not the Azores because there's no sunken continent around the Azores. Azores are small Portuguese islands in the middle of the Atlantic. They were a stepping point for transatlantic voyages, sort of, you know, into the New World. Atlantis is not the Antarctica. It's not the Antarctica. The Antarctica. Because Antarctica has been under ice for at least 100,000 years, and contrary to what some people think, has never been displaced from the Atlantic Ocean to its present position at the South Pole. Although a huge variety of places have been proposed as the site of Atlantis, none of them match in any way the geographic description which Plato gave except one location. The solution, the lost continent of Atlantis, is still there opposite the Pillars of Hercules, only now it has been renamed South America. The Atlantic island, which is as large as Libya and Asia together. Remember, they're not counting Asia, they're counting in like Asia. See my mouse? See my They're not. He wasn't counting Asia. He was counting Asia. together, and that is the opposite of the Pillars of Hercules, can only mean one place: America. There you go, Pillars of Hercules. Libya, Asia. Not true. But the idea that Atlantis is, you know, in the America or part of America has been around for a very long time. Devil's trying to escape, but I keep forcing him down. Oh, went all Steven Seagal then for a second. The key to the mystery of Atlantis is that Plato is describing both a large continent and a small volcanic island at the same time. Plato, it's quite small. Let's zoom in a little. Make it easier on the eyes. A small volcanic island of the same name. Plato tells us that the continent had a large, level, rectangular plain at its centre, and that in the centre of the plain was a small volcanic island which later became the city of Atlantis. Therefore, if the continent itself did not sink, it was only the small island city which sank into the sea, something which Plato would not have known about if he were merely repeating the story from an Egyptian. The island city of Atlantis contemporary drawing. That's not a period piece. That's a contemporary drawing. Background. Plato's description exactly fits. Brave words, Mr. Jim Allen. South America, because if there was no sunken continent in the Atlantic Ocean, then the continent opposite the Pillars of Hercules must be America. And we can specifically say South America was intended because Plato tells us at the centre of the island continent and midway along its side... Okay, and we're back. For some reason, OBS crashed on me. That has never happened before. I've never had OBS crash on this specific computer. So that's surprising. But it happened. Anyway, where did we get up to? Something side, I think it was the last word I managed to get out. Midway along its longest side was a perfectly level rectangular shaped plain which was high above the level of the sea and enclosed by mountains. The city in turn lay on a level rectangular plain 50 star days, about 5 miles if using Greek star days, from the sea, which is an inland sea, and according to Plato the whole region rose sheer out of the ocean to a great height on that side of the continent. Thus we have both the city and the continent. Okay, so that's the plain it's talking about. The Atlantis plain. The whole country was said by him to be lofty and precipitous on the side of the sea, but the country immediately about and surrounding the city was a level plain, itself surrounded by mountains which descended towards the sea. It was smooth and even and of an oblong shape. Well, aren't you special? All right, where were we? Model of the island continent, rectangular level plain. Yep, cool. Stations, Plato, blah blah blah. Uniformly flat. Yep, we've read all that. Therefore, it was not the continent of Atlantis which sank into the sea, but the island capital of the same name built around the volcanic island which sank into the inland sea of Lake Pupo, which exists on the edge of the rectangular plain presently called the Bolivian Altiplano. Got an amazing looking little GIF. Is that a GIF? Open image and new tab. Yes, sirree. So it's flooding. They've made that GIF with paint, and I am impressed. Modern satellite mapping shows the plain, now called the Altiplano, to be of a rectangular configuration, perfectly level, enclosed on all sides by mountains, and these mountains contain the metals which Plato told us about, namely gold, silver, copper, tin, and the mysterious orichalcum. Is he gonna... Ooh! Ooh! RealAtlantis.com. It happens. An alloy of gold and copper which occurs only in the Andes, and which Plato said were used to plate the walls of the circular city. The words Atla and Antis are themselves of Native American origins, meaning water and copper. Now that's spooky. Respectively, and the plain is subject to earthquakes and floods, such as Plato said sank the city in a single day and night of rainfall. Sinking into the sea. People sometimes say, how can Atlantis be in the Andes when it was supposed to have sunk into the sea? I don't know what accent that was. We must remember that Atlantis, according to Plato, was on a level plain, which was high above the level of the sea and surrounded by mountains. Yet the city was on a level plain and only 5 miles from the sea and connected to the sea by a canal. The only way the city can be on a level plain and 5 miles from the sea, and yet at the same time high above the level of the sea, is if there are in fact 2 seas. That is, here, the ocean sea, enclosing the island continent, and the inland sea adjacent to the city, so that the canal, which Plato said took ships from the sea to the city, was not a canal from the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, but a canal from the nearby lake, which is so huge that it is in fact an inland sea called Lake Pupo, which in turn is connected to another vast inland sea called Lake Titicaca to the north. In fact, the entire plain has been periodically submerged beneath the sea, i.e. it became a giant inland sea at various dates, going back thousands of years, succeeded by dry periods, and the earthquakes and floods which Plato described are absolutely typical of the region. So this is a really good map, actually. Europe, Africa, Atlantis, Australia. The opposite continent, Asia. That might be a good little tagline for like an Olympics. Asia, the opposite continent. Atlantis was at a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travellers of that time to cross from it to the other islands, and from the islands to the whole of the continent encompassing the veritable ocean, meaning from Atlantis, America, via Pacific Islands to the continent of Eurasia, i.e., in the above map, you can see the continent encompassing the veritable ocean extends from Africa, Europe in the west, to Asia in the east, and the veritable ocean is the mass of water which we today would call the Pacific Ocean on the one side of the continent of Atlantis, America, and the Atlantic Ocean on the other side. So America is the continent in the Atlantic Ocean, and if it is not in the Atlantic Ocean, then where is it? And from Atlanticus, we get Atlantis and Atlantic, the ocean named after the island of Atlantis. Okay. Now we get to the evidence. Okay? He's put down his whoa. Okay, it's a lot of pictures, that's good. Just gonna have a quick swig of gin, because it looks like piss. It's not. Majority of it's not. It's like a cocktail. There are certain key features which a site ought to comply with if it is considered to be Atlantis. The location is clearly defined by Plato when he says it's larger than Libya. He's really bringing that up a lot. And Asia together, and was in the Atlantic Ocean opposite the Pillars of Hercules. Therefore, that can only mean one place, America. Okay, fair enough. We have already mentioned that it should have been located on a continent opposite the Straits of... literally the sentence before. But then in the centre of this continent and next to the sea, there should be located a level rectangular shaped plain. The translation by Sir Desmond Lee even mentions that the plain was located midway along the longest side of the island. So that seems like a translation-y thing, doesn't it? Which is always a bit... If you're into your theology and your Bible studies, translations comes up a lot. So if we discover in America most of the geographic details of Plato's description, and we don't find in other locations such as Santorini or the Azores details such as Plato gave, then it is pointless of the people to continue promoting Santorini as the origins of Atlantis tale and ignoring the true location. In the beginning, it was necessary to conform that a smooth and level rectangular plain of the right proportions existed in South America at all. This was done by buying USAF navigation charts of the scale 1 to 1 million and tracing the contours at regular intervals in order to build a three-dimensional model which revealed the rectangular shape of the plane. If we zoom out enough, it's a rectangle. No! Bad Windows. I do not want to update. That's basically what he's saying. Like, if you look at the map, it's all squiggles and lines. But if you zoom out enough, then it's a rectangle. It's the old adage you see in geography a lot where if you increase the resolution, a border of a country will go up infinitely. Because if you zoom in more, then, you know, what is a line becomes, you know, a corner or whatever, you know. It's a thing. Look it up. Okay, so, wow, he really did just... that's not 3D printing. This is old school, like, contouring and doing layer by layer. Very impressive. Above, building out a model by stages. Plato described the plane as originally a quadrangle rectilinear, for the most part, and elongated. It was encircled by mountains, had a level surface, and was rectangular in shape. It was originally a long, narrow rectangle. No other site in the world, whether above water or underwater, has a level rectangular plane in the manner outlined and illustrated above. Wasn't surprised, but you never know. Atlantis high above the level of the sea, the rectangular I'm struggling on the easy words now, it's gone to my brain, plain enclosed by mountains. Plato also said that the region was high above level of the sea. It rose sheer out of the sea to a great height. It rose precipitously out of the sea and was enclosed by mountains. Yep, encircled by mountains, we get it, it's a plain. You've got Lake Pupo. It's just fun to say. You've got Lake Titicaca. Just as fun to say. We get it. The rectangular plain enclosed by mountains, yep. There's Bolivia, you got Lake Pupo. You got a rectangle. Yep. 50 star days from the sea. 2,000 by 3,000. Interesting. That's nice. Oh, so you're not going all the way to the end. You're just going to... Okay. Picking and choosing. I like it. The rectangular plane next to the Lake Pupo is the correct proportions. Modern map makers have chosen to show contours at intervals of 1,000 feet. So the above map shows the view of a plane defined by 13,000 foot contour, with inset a blue line defining the 12,000 foot contour. In the wet season, water gathers at the southern end of the plane, more or less along the... Okay. So what he's saying that because of the contouring, this would be all filled with water, so just ignore it. There it is. There's Atlantis. We found it, guys. Wrap it up. Christopher Columbus Encyclopedia. I don't... Okay. The table... Oh, so it's... what's the star days? Okay. Is it... How do you say that? Right. Let me just... Yeah. Makes the word... Yep. Stadium. I get it. How do you say it? How do you say it?
Sted.
Saying it in Spanish or something. I don't know. Stades. Okay, so he's given the... Okay. Wow, there's a whole section on Atlantis Star Day was resolved by high-resolution satellite images of irrigation canals in Mexico. Look at this! What is this? What's this? Wow! That's pretty cool. Okay, that's above and beyond what we're doing today. The Canals of Atlantis. Another of the key features described by Plato was a large canal which ran around the perimeter of the level plain, and a system of smaller canals parallel to each other which crisscrossed the plain at regular intervals. Ulf fought... the plain of Atlantis according to Ulf. Nice, thanks Ulf. Ulf thought the star day of Atlantis was an Egyptian ket of 175 feet. On the Altiplano, the Atlantean star day describing the city is a Sumerian star day. Why not? Of course it is. It probably says it's probably etched in the mountain somewhere saying Sumerian star days only. 165 feet, when describing the rectangular plane, it is double this, a unit of 330 feet. The parallel canals were intersected by a system of lateral canals, usually assumed to be at right angles, and used by boats for the transportation of the season's products, so the plain is usually shown divided into squares of 100 star days, and these were also divided into allotments of 10 by 10 star days. It's very modern looking, isn't it? You know, yeah. Above left, traditional drawing of the plain and canal system with Atlantis at its centre. Note the wide perimeter canal and the smaller crisscross canals. Are we looking at the same? Is this what he's talking about? Above left. Plains comparison page. Oh, okay, that's okay. That one's not there. Okay, canals. Okay, that looks like stuff's happening. At last, the Altiplano gives up its secrets. These canals of the Bolivian Altiplano, northwest of La Paz region, are regular plots of 330 feet, confirming the use of 330 star day to describe the irregular plane. The plane... That was the one we already clicked on, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's interesting. You can actually see the marks, can't you? Huh. What's going on? Oh, okay. In the Tabasco region of Mexico. So these aren't Tabasco region. These aren't actually in where he's saying they are. Okay. Looking for evidence of canal systems on the altiplanos being a key feature in the search for evidence. I would imagine so. The presence of canals was denied for a long time by the experts such as Simon Lamb of Oxford University. According to geologist Simon Lamb, there are no canals on Altiplano. Well, at least that's the impression this review of his book Devil in the Mountain tells us. Okay, this is interesting. Oh, there goes my neck. Simon Lamb, a geologist at Oxford University, got a call one day from a television producer about pictures of Atlantis. The lost civilization could be found on 12,000-foot high plains nestled in the Andes Mountains. An Atlantis expert, whatever that is, had shown the producer satellite photographs of the plains, pointing out canals running in parallel straight lines for miles. What more proof could one ask for? The producer called Lamb, an expert on the Andes, for confirmation. Lamb pulled out of his own satellite photographs, found the canals, and laughed. He told the producer that canals had formed naturally, without any help from the Atlanteans. Hundreds of millions of years ago, before the Andes existed, rocks had slowly piled up in layers. Later these rocks were heaved onto their side and raised up thousands of feet, whereupon rain began to flow down their exposed flanks. The water gnawed away at the weakest layers, creating a series of straight-edged channels. As he spoke, Lamb could sense hostility on the other end of the line. The producer didn't want to hear about the strata and erosion. Well, that's your explanation anyway, he huffed, and went off to make his documentary without Lamb's help. Atlantis in the Andes later appeared on the Learning Channel. Well, there you go. On the other hand, if you want an unbiased opinion, you could log into Google Earth and see the canals for yourself, or check out the ground shots below. The smallest subdivision of one star square is divided by smaller channels. Ground view of above channels, which divided the zone into square plots. Some are still maintained for use today above, whilst others are abandoned. That's got to be hard, dating plots in the Andes that are still used today. Okay. Huh. The recent high-resolution satellite imagery shows that the area just south of Oruro to be completely covered in a system of parallel canals, similar to Plato's description. Uh-huh. Click for more canal photos. Ooh, look at these bad boys. That's what I love seeing. Oh, you filthy. You're a filthy canal. Look at Lake Poo Poo. This guy loves it. Loves it. Right. Dating of canals in Peru. Dating location of canals in northern Peru. Wikipedia. Okay. That's suspicious. Not necessarily uncalled for, but suspicious. Satellite. Yep. Canals. Lots of canals. Yes. Again, dating canals is always going to be difficult, isn't it? Plato mentioned in Atlantis they crop the land twice a year. And some people think that because today the altiplano climate is often described as harsh and soils as poor, that it was always like that. Apart from effects of climate change, the destruction of the original agricultural system was mainly due to the efforts of the Spanish conquistadors, who removed people from the land and sent them down the mines in their quest for gold and silver. The original agricultural systems became abandoned and forgotten about, but Google Earth shows the vast areas of Altiplano were at one time originally cultivated using a variety of agricultural systems perfectly adapted to the terrain. Okay. Horizon satellite imagery of the Sucacolos shape of Atlantis circular canals. Okay. Altiplano, when Plato mentions all sorts of fruits and products available on the island, he is talking about the entire island continent, not only the Altiplano region. You're extrapolating a lot of information from a source that cannot be described by the author. It took 5 expeditions on Bolivian Altiplano to find a location that matched Plato's mountain. Okay. Okay, we're just completely... Okay, the seawall. Okay, we're on the seawall now. Plato. Near the plain, over against its centre, at a distance of about 50 star days from the sea, there stood a mountain that was low on all sides. So they're going to say that this is the mountain there. Embankment or seawall. Okay. The volcanic cone, 5 star days in diameter, lies at the centre of the level rectangular plain, 50 star days from the sea, and it is enclosed by 3 concentric sandy channels which formerly held water separating the rings of the land. After crossing the 3 outer harbours, one found a wall which began at the sea and ran round in a circle. At a uniform distance of 50 star days from the largest circle, the harbour and its ends converged at the seaward mouth of the channel. The whole of this wall had numerous houses built on it, set close together. The evidence. I want to see evidence of people living there. That's the big one, isn't it? Find an Atlantean shield. Seawall around Central Island. Okay, so he's saying around this mountain was where Atlantis stood. The Pupo Sea was much further in. Which would make sense if they were built on the seawall rather than... That's what he's saying, basically. If they were built on the seawall rather than around the thing, around Atlantis, that would mean it was submerged. This is a great picture. This is one of the ones I've used. And that makes sense. If, you have a seawall that's trying to get water in, so you've got this weird inland harbour, you'd build on that, wouldn't you? You wouldn't build on the sea. Okay. Alternative rings of land and water. Yep. Okay, stuff that's similar. The most distinguishing feature of Atlantis, and one which even the Milos International Atlantis Conference doubted might exist, was that of the main island of Atlantis, which Plato described first of all as home of Poseidon and later as the site where the city of descendants of Atlas reigned, was comprised of central islands surrounded by alternating rings of land and water. The island comprised of central islands, 5 star days in diameter, with 3 rings of water, 2 rings of land, enclosing each other like cartwheels. This is the one that, we already talked about. Okay, so they're describing, he's seeing the mountain or hill or whatever it may be. It's hard to tell the elevation, isn't it? That these are the rings, basically, or what's left of them. It's one of those things that sometimes you see it, like we talked about the Eye of Africa. You see it on a picture like this and it can be quite convincing, and then you actually go there or see other pictures from other angles and it's like, oh, more oblique photos. He's put in a lot of effort. He genuinely believes this. Okay, so you've got the mountain, surrounded by mountain on all sides. Ring of lands, got some dunes. Dune. The planet Arrakis. Okay, outer channel of northeast side, outer channel sunk. Okay, yep, so the reconstruction of Atlantis. And if it was destroyed in a cataclysm, then it's not going to look the same, is it? It's just going to get destroyed. It's going to look awful. Right, what did I do? Did I move that? Okay, that's fine. This is too much information for my little brain to cope with. Let's let it go. Nice hikes out there. Hot and cold springs were a feature of Atlantis. Yes, they were. Above left, hot springs typical of the Altiplano. At Paria, to the north of the lake, they provide hot water for a swimming pool. And at Panza, to the east end of Lake Pupo, they provide hot water for a spa with individual baths. Above right, cold water springs entertain tourists at Papalugas. Okay, the Minds of Atlantis. Amongst the numerous features mentioned by Plato, we should also mention the metals. The wealth they possessed was so great that the like were never easily seen again. The walls of the city were said to be plated in metals which to us were rare and valuable, but to the original inhabitants were common and plentiful. Amongst these were gold, silver, copper, tin, and a mysterious alloy called auriculcum. The main motivation for the Spanish conquest of the continent was the abundance of precious metals to be found there. The gold of Peru is said already famous in the world, and the silver from the mines of Potosi in Bolivia was a rich fountain of wealth which drove forward the Spanish Empire. Next to the mountain of silver in Potosi, there is another mountain of tin, which is also a rare metal not found in many places in the world. In Atlantis, the kings bathed in baths fed by natural hot and cold springs. When the conquistadors first went to interview the Inca ruler, Atahualpa, I've heard this said before, Atahualpa. They found him, Atahualpa, was in a small building close to some baths, the natural hot springs of Conosh, that still hiss and bubble out of the ground to this day. The pleasure house had 2 towers rising from 4 chambers, with a courtyard in the middle. In this court, a pool had been made, and 2 pipes of water, one hot and one cold, entered it. The 2 pipes came from springs beside one another. The Inca and his women used to bathe in the pool. Following the capture of Atahualpa at Carimaca, the plunder of Peru began. From the Inca's camp alone came 80,000 pesos of gold, 7,000 marks of silver, and 14 emeralds. Means nothing to me. The gold and silver was in the monstrous effigies, large and small dishes, pitchers, jugs, basins, and large drinking vessels, and various other pieces. Atahualpa said that this all came from his dinner service. Atahualpa subsequently offered a ransom to the Spaniards for his freedom. He promised to fill a room measuring 22 feet long by 17 feet high, up to a line 8 feet high, with gold and golden objects, and this was to be completed within the space of 2 months. The treasure train began to arrive frequently, and shortly afterwards the melting down of the treasure and destruction of all historic and artistic pieces began. Okay, so that's an interesting one. The Conquistadors could have destroyed the evidence for Atlantis. I like that. I like where that's going. Indian smiths carried out the melting of the 9 forges. On many days, the smiths were melting 60,000 pesos, over 600 pounds of gold. Over 11 tons of gold objects were fed into the furnaces of Cajamarca to produce lots and lots of gold. The silver objects yielded lots of gold. Wait. The silver objects yielded lots of silver. Spanish crown was rewarded with 1/5 of all gold, silver, and jewels, etc., etc., etc. After the initial melt down and distribution of the gold, further convoys of gold continued to arrive, and following the death of Atahualpa at the hands of the Spanish, additional gold, which had been on its way, was secretly hidden. Just as the walls and temples of Atlantis were plated in gold, silver, and orichalcum, the walls of the temple of the Incas were similarly plated in gold, silver, and orichalcum, known locally as tumbaga. When the Conquistadors ransacked the Temple of the Sun, known as the Coricancha in Cusco, they found these buildings were sheathed in gold. Okay, so they're talking all about this. Right, let's do a little bit of our own research, eh? So, okay, so the Incan Empire, yeah, does cover what we're talking about now. It's along the line of the Andes, isn't it? Okay, fair enough. Resume talking at me. The treasure trains began. Yep. Okay, so, but the metal which puzzled most people of all, Plato's description of orichalcum, since it was the second most valuable metal then known, it could be polished and sparkled like fire. And there are mines of it throughout the island. R.G. Burry considered it might have been a mountain copper. That's the one I've heard. It's like a copper alloy. It's some kind of weird alloy. But in fact, natural alloy of gold and copper matching Plato's description exists in the Andes, where it is called tumbaga. Not only that, but when the copper alloy is heated, then the object immersed in a special solution, the copper dissolves from the surface to leave an object with the appearance of pure gold. The object can then be polished to consolidate the gold atoms on the surface and further enhance the sparkling golden appearance. Cool. That's cool. That is cool. That might be orichalcum, but I don't think it wasn't just in the Andes. It might have been more plentiful in the Andes, just like gold was, but yeah, gold, copper alloys, other types of, stuff. Okay, so we've got Atlantis, maybe. We've got silver. We've got tin. We've got tin, silver, gold. Lots within this. Okay, so the mines. Cool. Before leaving, so red, black, and white stones of Atlantis. Before leaving the actual site itself, another important factor, which may be easily demonstrated on this site, is that Plato mentioned that the buildings were made of red, black, and white stones, intermixed to give a pleasing appearance. All 3 colours of stones are to be found in Pampa Aulagaus, some looking as if they're fragments of stones used to form the buildings, though no ancient buildings themselves remain. Yeah, big stones like this kind of shear sometimes, and you get like straight lines. It's just one of those things. But yeah, so that they're kind of red looking. Earthquakes were a major factor in the destruction of Atlantis. The region of Altiplano lies in the major earthquake zone, and earthquakes are still a major problem for peoples in this area. Yet, all along that west coast of the Americas is prone to earthquakes. Cool. Yep. That is fine. Earthquakes are legitimately a thing there. Okay, ridged hills, yep. Concentric sand, yep. Yep. Columns of stones, island fissures. Cool. Earthquakes, I get it. Earthquakes is fine. That's not something that I care too much about. Bordering on the sea and extending through the centre of the whole island, there was a plain which is said to have been the fairest of all plains and highly fertile. plain which extends through the centre of the whole island begins at the northern end of Lake Titicaca and continues all the way south past Lake Pupo. Okay, so the fact, although it's not rich agriculturally now, doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't in the past. Think of like the Sahara Desert, regions around the Sahara Desert now that are, you know, very hard to grow anything in. You think of Egypt and the Nile and the Delta. They were, you know, in the past luxurious. Iraq, Iran, Persia, Babylon, those areas, they've changed dramatically in the thousands of years that we would see. So here is a site that has all the factors that Plato mentioned. Firstly, it is the centre of a level rectangular plain at a distance of 50 star days from the sea. It has the required red, black and white stone. It has underground hot and cold springs. It is a root centre at the southern end of the lake. It is, and most important of all, it has been sunk by earthquakes and floods, just as Plato described. To resume some of Plato's points then, the Altiplano is the only location in the world which confirms to the geographic descriptions of Plato's Atlantis, suggesting that he did in fact indirectly receive a description of the Atlantic island, which he then incorporated into his story about the ideal system of government, adding a few details of his own, just spicing it up a little, and confusing everyone with his distortion of dates and details of military exploits. Okay, so, yeah, some things he made up, but the things he didn't make up, are exactly what I'm thinking. 5 pairs of twin suns and mysterious metal, yep. So these are all the different things that, yeah, a list of 25, that's pretty good. Okay. Atlantis, Bolivia, page 3. Bolivian legend of Atlantis and the discovery of America. The Atlantic island, also called Atlantis, remained lost from knowledge until 1492 when rediscovered by Christopher Columbus sailing west in an attempt to reach the Indies. The Vikings got there first, actually. Columbus had with him a map and believed that he had reached what he'd called the Indias. But Amerigo Vespucci was the first to identify the new discovered lands as a new continent or the new world. Yeah, Columbus died thinking he'd just found India. Or, you know, part of Asia. Ew, that's not what I consider a map. Look at it. It's disgusting. Aha. In 1507, the German cartographer Waldseemüller produced a world map on 12 panels, which included the newly found continent. He decided to name the continent America in honor of the navigator Amerigo Vespucci, who was the first to recognize that a continent was a continent in its own right, instead of being part of Asia as Columbus had thought. That's a nice map. Yep. Okay, cool. There it is. Yep. That's a map. Again, I love it when it's got like, yeah, it just ends in a straight line, I think. A straight line, yeah, straight line. It's just a straight line. You go in, I looked at it, and on the horizon, it was just a straight line. So just ends in a straight line? I think so, yeah. Oh, I love these old maps. I might do a whole Conspiracy 101 episode about old maps because they're brilliant. Some of the weird stuff that they have on them and why is just amazing. Okay, yeah, weird maps. Yep, shows Las Indias. Samurai was announced the discovery of history of Peru, 1556. Was stated that Plato's years were not years but months. So far, Plato, although he says a little later that 9,000 years before he wrote the power of the waters so increased in those seas that in a day and a night the island was submerged, drowning. Yep, blah, 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 blah. Reading this white on a blue background is just messing with my brain. Okay. Atlantis, the Atlantic island. Atlanticus. We're all familiar with Atlantis being called Atlantis, which allows its modern displacement to such places as Terra, which is totally unconnected with the original description. But going back, for example, to an early translation by Henry Davis, 1854, the island is merely called the Atlantic Island. Above Atlantis is the Atlantic Island. Okay, so now we're getting into semantics again. Being able to describe something as something else. What do they mean by this? What did Plato mean by this? Etc., etc. First map to show South America as Atlantis appeared Sebastian Munster as part of his Cosmographia. Yeah, I trust this because it looks like he got everything else right. Later edition, Insula Atlantica. Cuba. Nos Ubus. Oh, that's a nice map. Look how straight, how badly warped it is. It's right, but it's not quite right. California. Look how high California is. Why is California up here? I love it. In America versus Africa, the Duchess of Medina Sinsona points out that when historians thought sailors were voyaging to gold mines in Guinea, they were in fact voyaging to Guyana, whose original name was Guyana. I think they would probably know. Okay, so now they're talking about antipodes and places. Really getting into proper conspiracy territory now, where they're talking about it's all being mistaken for something else. Indonesia. This is like Mu now. This is you're on the wrong side, my friend. So you got Portuguese and you got Spanish sides. Following the Declaration of Independence by the United States in 1776, the name America, initially only applied to South America, became universally adopted and the name of Atlantis forgotten until resurrected in modern times. Okay, yeah, that kind of weird wordplay does happen a lot, though. How many times have something had to be changed because, in another language? The amount of roads that are called poop and cock and stuff in Scandinavia is hilarious. Or fata. Okay. More just yep. It's more wordplay. I'm waiting for page 4 because page 4, I'm hoping, is going to discuss what is described. Plato describes the people of Atlantis. No, Bolivian, yeah. And you think of South America, you think of certain types of animals. And there was a certain type of animal that's described as being... oh my god, what is he going on about now? Flood wars. Okay, flood wars. Fine. Submerged by the sea. Yeah, no, I can see that. It could have been anything. Weird stuff happens in South America in terms of their climate and their seasonal ups and downs and Los Niños and all that kind of stuff. Cool, some more pictures. Cool. Stuff hidden in Lake Titicaca. Old plazas, perfect, that's cool. Finding old stuff, pre-Columbian artifacts, that's awesome, because like I said, most of it was destroyed or corrupted in some way or melted. That looks like cuneiform. Yeah. That does look like Sumerian text. Freaky. Big old wheel, nice. Everybody loves one. Ships, They're not gonna... Okay, so page 4, conclusion. New opinions often appear first as jokes and fancies. I like this. I like where this is going. Then as blasphemies and treason. I don't know where this is going. Then as questions open to discussion, maybe we talk about it. And finally as established truths. A two-part solution, since there is no 100% solution that relates a time, place, and events to Atlantis in the exact manner Plato described. I love that. Past few pages, it's been, this is exactly what he said. Everything else, what other people said, was wrong. Can't you see it? About stuff that we don't quite know yet. We should consider, as suggested by the historian Robert Graves, the Greek myths. The possibility that a story of Atlantis is a composite story incorporating elements from other legends which have been grafted into the Atlantis geographical description. Yes. So why were they so adamant about throwing out Terra and Santorini? Plato was not writing a factual historical document, but a treatise to illustrate how his ideal state with a theoretical Athens could defeat a superior force in a time of war. Just like any modern writer, he would probably draw various sources together and polish them up into his final account. Pages 1 to 3 of his site demonstrate that the geographic description of Atlantis belongs to South America, particularly Bolivia, the Altiplano, Lake Pupo, and the circular formation of the Pampa Alugas. But what of the horses? There we go. The chariots, the fleet of 1,200 ships, etc., which Plato said came from Atlantis. And what of the date 9,000 years before Solon, when modern archaeology tells us there was no ancient Athens and no ancient Egypt? The dating of Atlantis and the wars of Atlantis. The dating is a difficult question. Some factors point to an earlier date, such as the mastodons. Also, at an earlier period, the climate on the Altiplano would have been warmer than it is today. So that's good. That makes it easier to explain the agriculture. Then the giant lasted years, big lake, then there was a dry spell. So a flooding event that fits roughly into Plato's date. So it could have been a flood. Yep, awesome. Could have been is good enough for me. Spanish historian Augusto Zarate, writing in 1555 in the History of Discovery of Peru, introduces the story of Atlantis and notes, Plato says, the power of the water so increased in those days, so that in a day and a night the island was submerged, drowning the land and population. Yeah, what? Just because some guy said it in 1555. Okay. Libya borders Europe. Yep. Trojan War. Yep. Confederate nations attempted to enslave the Eastern Mediterranean. Could be the armies of Persian Empire. Yep. It could be the weird pirate people. Forget what they're called. The sea people. I don't know what they're called. Something like that. Oh, there you go. Or an earlier date, which are often called the Sea Peoples. Yes, those people who attacked Egypt in 12... Yeah, blah, blah, blah. From all the stuff I've read, this seems to be the most... I think this is what Plato was using, basically, the Sea Peoples. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Sea Peoples. American drugs in Egyptian mummies. Okay? So you mix in your conspiracy theories here, and that's a dangerous game. If we go back to Herodotus, the Greek historian, writing in his histories, tells us of a great invasion by Greece by the Persians, defeated by Greeks, tells the Persians had a great fleet of 1,207 ships. Okie dokie. So he's mixed, basically saying, the geography, South America. Everything else, fucking don't know. I don't know, Mediterranean, Persian, who cares? Now you're mixing the conspiracies. Yep. Okay. The New Atlantis by Sir Francis Bacon. You shall understand that about 3,000 years ago, or somewhat more, the navigation of the world was greater than that of today. Okay. Yep. Mixing up these. It's nice as the Red Island, Red Sea. So now you're mixing up different peoples. Oh, this is too much. My brain's going to explode. What is going on here? Like solar years. Wow, that's a lot of years. Oh, so he's actually tried to decode a calendar. That's pretty cool. Pre-Columbian population of America. When European explorers travelled through Amazonia in the 18th century, they thought they were in pristine forest. This is very true. They were unaware that the region at one time had a population in the millions, although Spanish conquistador Francis de Orellana, who travelled the Amazon in 1542 from the Andes to the sea, had reported large populations, including stone-built cities. And occasionally they're finding them, but think of the Amazon rainforest. It's mental. You're not going to find anything unless you're lucky, basically. This is just... It's pointing at other things and going, that could have been there. I love these. I love these. The Google Earth and then the hitting on the little things. It's brilliant. Google Earth for geography and historical geography is, oh, it's godsend. Oof. Mastodons. Okay. Mastodons, animal sacrifice in Atlantis. That is one thing, yep. Probably llamas. Yeah, I don't think Plato said llamas, but it's probably llamas. Yeah. Yep. When therefore, after slaying the bull in the accustomed manner, they have burnt its limbs. Did they have cows? I don't think they had cows. That was the point I was making earlier, basically. They don't have cows. But, Plato stated he gave all the original names Greek equivalents to make it more agreeable to his readers. But that was meant to be from, like, Egyptian to Greek, wasn't it? Not... Okay. It is important to remember that he never actually visited the site himself, and neither the ancient Greeks nor ancient Egyptians had probably ever seen or heard of a llama. Thus, bull was substituted, just as trieme was substituted for whichever type of ship or boat was originally used. We don't know. Oh, okay, so now we've got this nice little chart table with all the different places. This is awesome. Okay, so Santorini, Bolivia, America, Mexico, Bimini, like the Bimini Road. Is it near Cuba? Near Cuba. Not Cuba, but near it. Heliki, Cyprus, Black Sea, Troy, Malta, Sicily. Is there the UK? Because sometimes people... Ireland, there's Ireland, that's cool. Sweden, Sudan, and Antarctica. Okay, this is this is cool. I like this. These wow, look at that. 98%. Incredible. Wow. Someone really doesn't want this getting out, because this is the third time. Oops. No, second time that it's crashed on me. And it has never crashed before in my life. So anyway, yes, 98%, really high. And these other Santorini and Azores, quite low. It's kind of ridiculous, really. Indonesia is super high in terms of this. Who would have thought it? So you got the verses. Additional materials. So anyway, let's wrap this up. Please go to this website and have a peruse. There is more than I could possibly given. Look at all this. I could possibly show in one of these episodes. And if you go, there's this little bookstore, and it's got various books. First published in 1998, so it's been going for a while. One thing I did want to do is just see. So let's just pause that there and just see. It makes me want to watch the there's a Discovery UK show apparently. Interesting. It looks like he's done lots of work. He's been going for a while. Far as I can see, he is still alive. I think. If anybody wants to let me know if he is or if he isn't, that'd be great. But as far as I can tell from just a quick Google, he is, yeah. But there is a, there you go. Atlantis in the Andes. So, like I said, this is kind of being in betweeny. I need to go and have a look to see what's happening with my with OBS, because it seems to have died. But just on a light-hearted note, I've never heard of this before, and it just knocked me for six. The Erfurt latrine disaster. In July 1184, Henry VI, King of Germany, later the Holy Roman Emperor, held court at a Hoftag. I don't know what Hoftag is. What's that? Informal and irregular assembly convened by the King of the Romans. All right, an assembly. In the Petersburg citadel in Erfurt. On the morning of the 26th of July, the combined weight of the assembled nobles caused the wooden second-story floor of the building to collapse, and most of them fell through into the latrine cesspit below the ground floor, where about 60 of them drowned in liquid excrement. This event is called Erfurter Latrinensucht, the Erfurt latrine fall, in several German sources. Wow. What a way to go. And on that note, I shall see you for Conspiracy 101 Season 2 next week. Hopefully, no more problems. Bye, everyone. That's a goddamn lie. I'm going to be back next week. Today is the 3rd of September.